Greetings, Otaku Faithful. Thank you for joining me again this week. Once again, it's Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, and I'm here to bring you all yet again another Discussion of the Week video segment right here on Otaku Assemble Weekly. And as always, here to bring you the latest in this week's Discussion of the Week video segment. Now, this week's Discussion of the Week topic, it does come from another current event issue, it does come from another topical issue, and it was even recommended to me by one of my subscribers. But pretty much this week I'm going to be discussing anime film adaptations. Now, recently, for those of you all who have been keeping up with the news online, I'm pretty sure many of you all have probably already heard about this, but last week, the first screenshot from the upcoming Ghost in the Shell film adaptation was released online, and of course the internet responded with a bunch of fans and moviegoers who do not like the idea of having Scarlett Johansson star in a film that should rightfully belong to an Asian actress. And even beyond that, it's not only is it the fact that Scarlett Johansson is starring in this film, but even the character who she is portraying in the film, Major Motoko Kusanagi, who is the main character of the Ghost in the Shell franchise. And so, once again, this brings up the whole debate of whitewashing, which I'll get into more detail with that later on in this discussion. And so, of course, I've already known about this because I've been following the project since it was released a couple of years ago. Matter of fact, I believe it was 2014 was when they first announced that they would be doing this and that Scarlett Johansson was given the role. But so after I'm reading about all of this, I go online and I start doing some homework, I start doing some reading, and then apparently there are a lot more anime properties that are set to be adapted into film. And this really did sort of catch me off guard. And the reason for that is because I thought that the whole anime film adaptation thing, I thought this had died out, okay? You know, it's been 8 years since Dragon Ball Evolution, well, almost 8 years. It'll be 8 years this fall since Dragon Ball Evolution. That thing was a complete flop. And since then, we haven't really had too many anime adaptations stateside. We had Old Boy a couple of years ago. That was a massive flop. But other than that, we haven't really been getting anything stateside. Now, granted, overseas, on the other hand, yes, the Japanese, they've been continuing adapting their properties as rightfully they should, because it's their properties, it's their work. Who better to adapt it than them? I mean, can you honestly see a Japanese studio adapting, say, Spider-Man? Which, for the record, they did do that back in the 70s, if any of you all have seen that serial. But no, you couldn't see the Japanese adapting Superman. You couldn't see the Chinese adapting Batman, right? So, and yeah, overseas, since 2008, not only have the Japanese been adapting their own works, but they've actually been doing it successfully. Since 2008, we've gotten a complete trilogy adapting the Rurouni Kenshin series, and those have been highly successful both financially and critically. Attack on Titan, I believe that film has just recently been released. They've done 2 Gantz films, so they are continuing constantly adapting their own products, and more power to them. Stateside, on the other hand, and I don't understand why we keep doing this, but it seems like no, the whole anime film thing hadn't died out. You know, for a while there was talk of a Cowboy Bebop film because Warner Brothers, a few years ago, they brought the film rights to it. Apparently that fell into developmental hell. Then there was the whole talk of the Akira film, which, once again, Warner Brothers, they had the film rights to that, and there was a lot of talk around the time because they wanted to go ahead and whitewash it, and they wanted to set it in New York, and this, that, and the other, and then that fell into developmental hell. So I was under the impression this thing had died out. Now, of course, the Ghost in the Shell news, which we found out a couple of years ago, but just within the last 2 weeks, Death Note, that's happening again. And matter of fact, Netflix just went ahead and picked it up, right? Okay, so that's happening. Right now, as it stands, because this was released yesterday, I believe, there is a bidding war for the film rights to Pokemon. I went on Wikipedia. Apparently, there's supposed to be a Naruto adaptation being done. There's supposed to be a Beyblade adaptation being done. So apparently, this thing is not dead yet. So that I'm going to use as the main focus for this week's discussion. Now, first and foremost, let's go ahead, let's just start this discussion with the elephant in the room, because I do not believe that you can adequately discuss this issue without talking about the whole whitewashing bit. You just have to. You have to do it. And the reason for that is because we feel the need to go ahead, take a foreign property, we throw a bunch of famous actors who are famous to us and who cater to our audience, and then we go ahead and we put a bunch of writers who don't understand the source material. We put a big name director on it, so hopefully that'll get the film geek crowd in board. And then we put together a shit product and we put it out there and we expect people to eat it up, and they always end up flopping, right? But so whitewashing is a huge that's a huge contributor to that, because a lot of the properties that actually do get licensed over here for adaptation are popular properties amongst anime and manga fans stateside. And of course, we're always the first one to speak up about, why don't you cast an Asian actor or an Asian actress? Oh, they don't look the part, or you change this, oh, you change that. We're going to spot all the changes a mile away. And in this particular issue with Ghost in the Shell, I've heard both sides of the argument already. I've heard both sides of the argument. I've heard just about every counter argument that can be made, right? Okay, so why did they go with Scarlett Johansson? Oh, because we needed, okay, of course, Hollywood, they completely deny any type of whitewashing as that being an intentional, completely in their right mind decision, right? They're like, oh no, of course that's not what we do, right? And let's face it, this is a tired, old, archaic practice that at this point has gotten ridiculous and quite laughable. I'm pretty sure over in Japan, they're laughing their asses off over this, okay? But so for Scarlett Johansson, what is the argument in favor of her playing the role? Oh, well, we needed a white actress because we have to sell this to white audiences. Well, I have to beg the question of, why is this film even being made if that's the case? Because, once again, you spent money to buy the film rights to a popular anime and manga series. You bought the rights to a property that had a pre-established fan base. And then the very next thing you do, you go ahead and you put an actress in there that chances are would piss off said fan base. So why are you even bothering making the film? Who is the film for? Is it for the fans? Because they clearly don't want this casting. Now, bringing it back to Scarlett Johansson. Okay, so the idea is you need a white actress in order to cater to your white audience, because you assume mostly white people are going to go see this film, right? Okay. Then there's the argument that, well, no, it can't just be any white actress. It has to be an A-list actress because she's the one that's going to sell the film. We're going to sell it off of her name. Okay, so then that means you aren't making it for the fan base. You're making it because you know it's fairly popular, and you're using your A-list actress as a canon in which to go ahead and sell the film off of. Okay. And then that argument goes with, well, there are no Asian actresses in the A-list. You're absolutely right about that. You're absolutely right about that, because Hollywood has not made it a point to make minorities A-list actors. And then who's to say that, hey, you couldn't put an unknown or a lesser known Asian actress in this role? Who's to say that you couldn't do that? Because it actually has been done before. It has been done before on smaller projects that actually were successful. And the idea that just having a white star for your film, that won't necessarily mean you'll be making the moolah, because let's face it, we've done this where we've put a white male actor in the center surrounded by an Asian cast adapting an Asian property, and it doesn't work out so well. Last Samurai met expectations. That's it. 47 Ronin, I like that film, and guess what? It tanked. It tanked. And you had Keanu Reeves in charge of that. Not only was he the star of the film, but he was also one of the executive producers and co-writers for that film. And that tanked. So once again, I really have to beg the question of some of these decisions being made. Here's the thing. Despite the, these are the arguments for having Scarlett Johansson in this role, and these are the arguments for not having Scarlett Johansson in this role, honestly and truly, I think this has more to do with the fact that Scarlett Johansson was the star of Lucy, which was a major success both domestically and internationally. And I think that's the main reason why she's cast in this role. Why? Because this casting was first announced a week after Lucy was released. And that film did incredible in the Chinese box office. So I think that, and I think this is the point that a lot of people have wrong. I don't think it's about, oh, we need Scarlett Johansson in order to sell this film to American audiences. I don't think that's the point at all. I think they need her to sell this to international audiences, because that's where most of their money is going to come from, adapting an Asian property. And she was the star of a film that was highly successful over there. So we need to sell it to them. And then also, at the end of the day, keep this in mind, people. Over in China, over in Japan, over in Asia, in the Asia film market, they don't really make too much of a big deal about whitewashing. They don't. Believe it or not, they don't. And here's the other thing too. Hollywood actors over there, they're fucking superstars over there, okay? Over here, they're celebrities. Over there, they're superstars. So there's a novelty in getting Scarlett Johansson in this role in order to sell to the international markets. I think that's what they were going for. Whether or not they'll be successful, I don't know. I'm pretty sure they won't be too successful stateside. Whether or not they'll pay off for them internationally, we'll just have to wait and see. But as I said, regardless of whatever argument you want to use, either for or against it, at the end of the day, like I say, whitewashing is an old, ridiculous, archaic practice. It really should, in 2016, be done away with. But it hasn't, and it probably won't be for a very long time. Not until the old, brittle, racist generation of studio execs and presidents, not until they die out and the younger, more liberal, more enlightened, more free-minded individuals get into those seats of power. Only once that happens do I see any significant change in that department, to be honest with you guys. But guess what? There is some beauty to it. There is some beauty to it. What have I been saying? What have I always been telling you guys? What did I say last week in Discussion of the Week? What did I say in my Justice League live stream? What did I say in my Batman Superman rant? What did I say in my Problems with Hollywood video? What have I been saying the entire time I've been on YouTube? I've been telling you guys, if you don't like a film, don't support it. Don't go and see it in theaters. Don't spend your money on it. Fuck, don't even watch it when it comes on television. Don't Redbox it. Don't Netflix it. Don't support it at all. Because at the end of the day, if you ever want to get your point across to any type of studio exec that exists in Hollywood, the only language they speak is money. And that is the language in which you all have to speak in. You have to speak with your dollar. If you do not speak with your dollar, you're just defeating purpose, and you'll never see the change you want. But even I remember at the time when this was first announced, I was actually one of the ones who was in support of this. I actually supported it. Why? Because I like Scarlett Johansson. I think she is a good actress. I think she actually could play the role very well, but also because I did not think that they would necessarily make her Major Kusanagi. The second I find out that she actually is supposed to be that very character and that she's supposed to look like this, which actually I don't think she looks bad, but let's face it, once you bring it to that point, then I do have to bring up an issue. Why? Because at the end of the day, Kusanagi, Motoko Kusanagi, that's a Japanese name. That's supposed to be a Japanese woman, and y'all really could have found an Asian actress to do it. Now, the idea that you don't have an A-lister, okay, that's debatable, but would you really need an A-lister for this type of film, especially since it's such an obscure property? I mean, God, they could have gotten my girl from Pacific Rim to do this role, or even a more recognizable one. Where's Kelly Hu? How come y'all didn't hit her up for this role? Okay, she's fairly popular. Or hell, how about this? Olivia Munn, who actually is half Asian herself, and who does have her own fan base, and who is a very popular actress right now. Hell, she's playing an Asian character in X-Men Apocalypse. Y'all telling me y'all couldn't get Olivia Munn for this role? So, and then also my major confliction with it though it comes from the fact that Ghost in the Shell is actually a property that is not inherently Japanese. You can take the premises, the themes, the concepts, hell, even the actual plot, the narrative itself. You could take it and very easily adapt it stateside for Western audiences. And all you would really have to do is just change the character's name. You could even have a female protagonist that does everything Major does, that acts just like Major, and just change the name And none of us would be any of the wiser. Us who know the fucking series would be able to tell that. But nobody going to see this blindly would be the wiser on that. This is actually one of the few anime properties that could be translated for Western audiences relatively easy. Hell, the fucking Wachowski brothers practically did it with The Matrix, okay? And on that same note, Death Note. That's why I've actually, funny enough, I've actually been in support of a Death Note film adaptation. A Hollywood film adaptation. Why? Because that story is something that you can very easily adapt for American audiences. All you have to do is just change the characters' names and change a couple of plot details. That's it. I could fucking do it in my sleep. I'm surprised I haven't done it already. Also, going into the list that I brought up earlier and pretty much bringing up the whole anime film adaptation bit as a whole. Okay, a bidding war over Pokemon. Pokemon is that is a property you actually could translate for American audiences, and it wouldn't take much effort. Fuck, the Unova region was based on America. It was based on America. In Pokemon Black and White, that whole region is based off of America. So they've already done the work for you. They've already laid it out for you. All you gotta do is just follow the blueprint, man. Just follow the fucking blueprint. Beyblade, that's another one. The whole point, the whole concept behind that property is the game itself. You can very easily adapt that for American audiences. Fuck, Max, one of the main characters in Beyblade, is American. He's American. So yeah, see, these are properties without a hitch. You can go ahead and you can very fucking easily adapt these into American audiences. With that being said, there is an inherent problem at play. Okay, what is this inherent problem that you're talking about? Okay, at the end of the day, regardless of the property, regardless of how adaptable it actually is, regardless of whatever argument you want to make for or against whitewashing, regardless of whatever argument you want to make about who the film is intended for, who's the audience supposed to be, the demographic, this, that, and the other, regardless of whatever argument you want to make about what market in which you are going to try and cater this film towards, at the end of the day, the inherent problem with most anime film adaptations is that the people making these films don't understand the material. I won't even say that they don't inherently love the material, because actually any writer, producer, director, actor, actress, anybody who is actually involved in making said film, if they're good at their fucking job, it wouldn't really matter if they give a shit about the property, because they're good at their job. You know, now granted, yeah, the more in love with it, the more likely you are going to get some, really good material out of them, right? Because, hey, we probably wouldn't have gotten Lord of the Rings without Peter Jackson not been a fan of Tolkien, right? Had he not been in love with Tolkien. We probably wouldn't have gotten that Deadpool film that we did had Ryan Reynolds not been in love with Deadpool. We probably wouldn't have gotten the Dark Knight trilogy had Christopher Nolan not been in love with Batman. Christopher Nolan's probably the best example because he's not even a comic book reader. But what do all three of those people have in common? Can anyone watching this video answer that for me? It's not just that they love the material, but can anybody break it down for me? It's that they understand the material. Okay, Jackson understands Tolkien. Nolan understands Batman. Reynolds understands Deadpool. Okay, and by extension, Rob Liefeld. Okay, Guillermo del Toro understands Mike Mignola, and he understands Hellboy. Okay, it's not just that they love the material, they understand the material. And the problem is with a lot of Hollywood writers, because you guys got to keep this in mind, the way it works out, studio buys the rights because it's a popular property. They go ahead and they just hire people for the gig, and these people, yeah, they might do some research on it, but by and large, they pretty much just play up to whatever the popular tropes are of said property, and then they throw some shit together. They don't actually understand the property. They aren't fans of this property in the same way you and I are fans of this property. And I think that's always, anime film adaptations, that's always going to be a problem. So they're always going to be bad so long as that continues to be a problem. It's the one problem that the Japanese do not have. Why? Because they understand the material. They understand it. They understand it. They make the material every day. They get it. Okay? There will always be that breakdown, that loss in translation. that happens with these properties until we start getting people that actually legitimately care about these properties. And guess what? I'm not saying that it can't be done, guys. It can be done. I'm pretty sure the Wachowskis, they actually, I do believe the story goes, at one point they did want to do a Ghost in the Shell live action film, but they couldn't get a studio to back it. And that's also another problem, because any type, these types of films, regardless of how popular properties they might be, if studios think that they're a risk, they're not going to sign off on the shit. They're really not. I mean, that's why Guillermo del Toro can't get a fucking Hellboy 3 made right now. And guess what? That's a fucking American property. That's an American property. There's a reason why Pacific Rim, which was an original story, okay, which does borrow very much highly from Asian influences. There's a reason why it took so long for sequels to be announced for that film. And guess what? Now that's in developmental hell. What can we as fans and viewers of this material do? Just don't support it. Don't watch it, don't support it. That's all we really can do until we start getting people in place who actually care enough about the material to do it done right. And as I've mentioned before in this discussion, I've given you guys multiple examples. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. Anyone who actually understands the material could do it very easily, okay? It's not hard to make a Cowboy Bebop adaptation. It's not hard to make a Death Note or Ghost in the Shell or Pokemon or Beyblade adaptation, okay? This stuff isn't difficult. Now, there are some properties like Akira. Akira, that would have been a difficult property to translate over to American audiences. Why? Because there are elements of that story that are inherently Japanese. Naruto, same thing. Very, 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 very enriched in Japanese culture and Japanese mythology. And guess what? Some of that stuff does not correlate well over to American audiences. Not unless you do what I highly recommended they do with Dragon Ball Evolution. Just make a martial arts film, dude. Just make a martial arts film with all that stuff still left in it, and then just import it. Or treat it like an import. Treat it like you did with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Treat it like you did with Hero. Treat it like you did with House of Flying Daggers. Treat it like you did with Iron Monkey. Treat it like you did with the Ip Man films, which actually, if memory serves, I think they started remaking the Ip Man films. Like Hollywood started to adapt the original Ip Man films. But the same way they treat those, you gotta treat some of these properties the same way you do it like those, because that's your audience. That's who you are making it for. And you'll be highly more successful because doing it that way, you'll actually hit closer to the source material than you did trying to make it as a standard general audience Hollywood film. So that's pretty much going to wrap up this discussion of the week video. I want to thank you all for joining me again this week. In the comments below, please leave your thoughts on anything I discussed in this video. Leave your thoughts on the Ghost in the Shell adaptation. Leave your thoughts on Scarlett Johansson. Leave your thoughts on whitewashing. Leave your thoughts on some of the future projects that I mentioned in this video. If you like it, thumb it up, share it with other people you think would enjoy this video. And if you have yet to do so, subscribe to the OAW YouTube channel, annotation above head. So I'm going to get out of here. I'm pretty sure you guys can tell I'm exhausted after going through this video. Yeah. So with that being said, it's been Larry Williams, OAW Commander-in-Chief, signing off. And until next time, peace.